Hey, all right. I would like to ask a question first. Have you ever walked into a room that full of people and suddenly in just 1 second you realize that you didn't belong? Maybe they're all laughing at the same jokes, maybe they wore the same clothes and you didn't. Maybe you just know that you are not part of them. And these tiny moments of awkward silence, of looking for where to put your hands, of wanting to be invisible, yeah, that's where my talk begins. What I want to say is that deep down, we all wanted to be accepted. But here's a paradox. While we craving for acceptance, we ended up judging or even excluding others. And that contradiction sits inside all of us, shaping how we treat people around us and even people we love. Let's take a look closer to our home, our families. You might think that family is a place you should always feel understood, accepted, and safe. But for most of us, it is actually where you first experience rejection and misunderstanding. Now let's talk about me, my family. I have a sister who is 2 years older than me, and during our interactions, we've always gotten along surprisingly amazing. Our relationship is very, very easy. It's full of understanding. But for our mom, who's just right here, it's a completely different story in an exactly same home. Sometimes it's just a few words and we are already arguing. And it feels like we are on completely different frequencies. At first, I thought it was just a typical parent-child drama. But then, I realized something deeper. People, I mean all of the humans, can only really understand things they've gone through themselves. So, me and my sister are closing age, born in the same era, and share the same references. So we get each other. But for my mom, she grew up in a different time, shaped by completely different values and experiences. The generation gap makes it different for her to understand my choices, and just as it's difficult for me to understand her worries. But here's the thing though. Even when we don't understand each other, we can still respect each other. And that respect, when it turns into a genuine curiosity about what the other person is thinking, that's when diversity in thinking becomes a strength, but not source of conflict. But allow me to go further. This understanding takes effort. It's not natural and not easy at all. So when me and my mom fought, I used to think that she just doesn't get me. But one day, after yet another pointless argument, I took a pause and asked myself, what if I'm not supposed to change her mind, but simply show her who I am in a way she would understand me? At that moment, changed how I spoke to her. I stopped trying to win in the fight and started trying to connect with her. And slowly, very, very slowly, our arguments becomes conversations. So, we find the real question here. If we can learn to build connects and bridges across the generation gap, which is really massive, why can't we do the same across differences in our society for culture, race, or even beliefs? So when I talk about this, we'll move from home to our schools because I'm 16 years old and I don't have work experience. So, but school, Microsoft, society. So, when I was in middle school, there was a kid in our class that everybody calls him the fool. Well, he didn't fight back when the classmates were teased him, which has only encouraged more cruelty. Back then, there was no punching, no pushing, and no fight, but the world, they stunned. Here's what hurts the most when I look back. My classmate wasn't really a fool, wasn't dumb at all. His grades were conversely solid, but no one tried to understand him. I didn't. I just stayed quiet, stayed silent, and stayed out of the business. And now I realize I wasn't just a bystander. I was part of the problem. So again, I'll question again. Why do people do this? Why do we exclude others? Because differences makes us uncomfortable. Just because when someone doesn't laugh at the same jokes or understand the same memes, we treat them like they are not one of us. And because deep down, we scared that if we stand with the outcast, we'll become the next target. We think of groups as safe spaces, but sometimes they're only held together by a shared enemy. Maybe the enemy was not quite enough, not cool enough, but maybe because he is just being himself. But she becomes to the target. And we wouldn't handle that. What's the saddest part? I've already understand why these all conflicts, why these all bullies happens. And still, to this day, I haven't figured out how to stop it. To show uniqueness, or maybe prevent ourselves from being not cool enough, people starting to make so-called diversity everywhere, at least in appearance. They get their hair dyed and they get tattoos and to dress to stand out, and that is cool. I used to do it too. But now I'm starting to wonder, do we do these things because we truly love them or because we're afraid of being boring? It is pretty ironic. We chase uniqueness, but only the kinds that's socially accepted. And the second that someone is different in a way we don't understand, it's just like my classmate, they're out. They're out of the society. Diversity has become something we perform. But what I'm talking about today is the kind you want to live with. What's more, last year I went to US for a school camp, and our tour guide was a Chinese man who lived in US for like 10 years. Throughout the whole trip, he kept talking about how much better life in the West has compared to China, which is where I'm from. He openly said that he preferred to like Western girls, and he said that he liked drugs and something, and criticized Chinese culture as too backward to survive in the modern world. I was stunned at that moment, and feeling both assumed and pathetic. Not just because I disagree with him, but because he seemed proud of abandoning his own identity. And to be honest, I judged him, and I felt angry. I thought, how could you talk like that about your own road? But later, I asked myself a tougher question. What made him feel like he must be like that to fit in? Maybe in the community he lived in, intolerant his identity. He had to distance himself from being Chinese. Maybe over time, that pressure became internalized. He wasn't just imitating people around him, but he had erased himself to survive. And that's not just sad. It's more like terrifying. Because here's the deeper truth. Even in Western societies that claim to value diversity, some kinds of diversity are still treated as inferior. When Chinese values, accents, food, education styles are constantly mocked, even in subtle ways, we can feel it, right? We begin to believe we have to hide them to be accepted. What is not inclusion? And that is assimilation. So what do we do? I'm not here to say like, don't fight, don't judge, just get along with it. No. I'm also not saying that we should tolerate discrimination or stay quiet when we are hurt. That's not strength. That's submission. But we also shouldn't respond in intolerance with another intolerance. That just fuels the fire. What we need is something harder, but more powerful. To stop seeing people as a representative of a group, but in individuals with stories, fears, and wounds. How about the guy I met? I think he's not ashamed to Chinese culture, and he is not brainwashed. He is just a person just like all of us, struggling to belong. And that struggle deserves my empathy, even if I disagree with his choices. What we only need to know is that we have to stop reacting and start understanding. That means asking questions, even when the answers we are feeling uncomfortable. It means looking at others and thinking, what happened to you instead of, what's wrong with you? Nah. Because here's the truth about human nature. We are born with the instinct to divide, to protect us from them. But we are also born with the capacity to learn, to reflect, and to choose differently. Diversity isn't a problem to be solved. It's really to be embraced. And acceptance, that's not a finish line. It's a choice we have to make every single day. So the next time you feel the urge to judge someone, please take a pause. And the next time someone disagrees with you, please listen at first. And the next time you feel like hiding who you truly are, please do not do that. Because the world needs all of us in our full, messy, complicated diversity. And for someone who's about to step up right here after me, I want to say that you are not just giving a speech. You are living your values out loud. And that's really powerful. Thank you very much.